Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the Coaching Corner. I am Jamila, aka the IEP Coach. I am the founder and lead consultant of the IEP Coach LLC. And we are an education consulting company. We specialize in providing special education centered support to our teachers and our instructional assistants or paraprofessionals so they can thrive in their roles. So, giving them that coaching, giving them that training that they need so that way they can master their skills in instruction, master their skills in case management, etc. So that way it benefits the student. And we also support parents with understanding the special education, IEP, and 504 plan processes because when parents are more equipped with the knowledge and information, they can confidently advocate for their children and themselves, and their children benefit from that. So it's a win-win when we support our teachers and our parents, and our teachers are more likely to stay in their roles when, of course, when they're getting paid what they should, but also when they're getting that training and support that they need to thrive in their roles. All right. That's just a little bit about us. Let us know where you are tuning in from in the comments section. And as always, share out this live. As I'm telling you to share it out, I'm sharing out as well. And I have to say Ramadan Mubarak to all of the Muslims all over the world. Ramadan has started and we are acknowledging the blessed month of Ramadan. I pray that everyone has a blessed month. I pray that everyone is able to reap all the benefits from this special time, and that you leave this month better than how you came. You leave it better than how you entered it. That's always a goal because because during this blessed month of Ramadan, we are working on being our best selves. It definitely is I want to say a detox and a reset for our mind, our bodies, and our souls. So we should leave this blessed month better than how we arrived. Okay. All right. And if your school or your organization, your company is in need of some culturally responsive support for Ramadan to support your staff or to support your students, we have our Ramadan presentation that is still currently being available. I'm gonna put the link in the comments so that way you can book a call with us and see how we can support your organization, your employees, your students. And also, we still have spots open for our strategy calls. That is your one-to-one time with me, the IEP coach. We can focus on, hey, you may need help planning an IEP, goals for your IEP. Parents, you may need help with making a request for an evaluation or something like that. Administrators, you may need some suggestions. You may need to brainstorm some improvements you want to make to your programming. You can definitely utilize that time. It's an hour. We're going to drop that link too, so that way you can just schedule time with us and we can support you in that way as well. All right, let's get to it. So last week we discussed MDR's manifestations of disability reviews. MD as in dog R. Okay. And I told you that this week I would share an example of how a MDR review, a MDR meeting occurs. Okay. And why it will occur. All right. So I shared last week, a student with an IEP cannot be suspended beyond 10 days. Okay. So if it gets close to that time or they reach that 10th day, then you have to do a manifestation of disability review to see, oh, is it a manifestation of the student's disability? And then we have to see, okay, is the current programming working? What changes we need to make if we do need to make any changes? And then also updating the IEP if we need to. Okay. So there was a student that attended one of my schools, and we will call this student, what are we going to call him? We're going to call him William. Okay. So William had a lot of behaviors. I want to say starting in elementary. And the behaviors was just getting more and more egregious, excuse me. And he was getting suspended, consistently getting suspended, having parent meetings, It even got to the point where he was getting evaluated for an IEP to see if there's something internal going on. Is there anything going on that is causing the student to behave at school in this way? So when I say behaviors, he's fighting and purposefully fighting, like just hitting people for no reason, punching people, destroying things at school, like was just misbehaving, a misbehaved student. So the school was trying to see, and this is prior to me coming to the school, what is the issue? And when he was getting evaluated, they couldn't even finish his evaluation because of how disrespectful he was behaving, and then not wanting to partake in the task that he was being directed to do. So when I arrived to the school, the student is in, I want to say, 7th grade. Yes, the student is in the student was in 8th grade, excuse me. The student was in when I first met him, he was in 7th grade, but then we're now in 8th grade. And so he would get into a lot of fights, and he would walk out of class. If he didn't feel like doing the work, he would just get up out the just walk up out the class, leave. He had a FBA, he had a positive behavior support plan, he had counseling, he did have an IEP, he had counseling, so he had all the services in place. And he would still, if he felt like it, he would still leave out of class. He would still, get into a fight. And the thing is, he would go after people who he knew wouldn't really fight back. You know what I mean? You know how you have students just like, listen, I'm not trying to get in trouble. I'm just trying to get good grades and do what I got to do. He would, target those particular students. And, I'm keeping track of, his suspension. So when he got to, I want to say 6 suspensions, I was just like, it's a possibility he could hit 10. So I contacted our director, as well as the psychologist who was assigned to my school, so that way they can be aware of what's going on. And that's very important to, I want to say, flag it early. If you see a student who's having multiple suspensions, flag it early. Contact your director, contact the school psychologist as well. And as well as your principal, because my principal was also the one who was doing not my principal, my assistant principal was the one who was documenting the suspensions. So psychologist, she remembered William. She remembered how difficult it was, to evaluate him, because she was, she still had the notes and everything. And I was explaining to her everything that was going on at school, and then also things that were going on at home. Okay. So then another day, he hits a student. He just straight punches the student in the face for no reason. And then in the process of him punching the student in the face, he pushed the teacher out the way in order to punch the student. So he had the intention, he wanted to hit this student. And as the teacher was, trying to get him to, calm down, things like, he just pushed the teacher out the way. So I think at the time he might have been up to 7 days, and he got 3 days, and that put him at the 10. So, and then I want to say, yes, 10, but like once it gets over 10, that's when like the process starts. So he got suspended, and I was just like, you know what, let me just start to get things together, because I know we're going to have a MDR, because we wasn't even really that deep in the school year yet. I'm not even sure we were halfway through the school year yet. So now when you do a MDR, you have to have all your data regarding that student. So I got every single last suspension letter for that current school year. I made a Google document for everybody, and I organized all the information. I had a folder for every single last suspension and what the suspension was for. Like I even made like a chart on the Google Doc. It had the dates, it had the reason for the suspension, and then the suspension letter link was hyperlinked right in the document. And also that's just how organized I am, because I have to share this with the whole IEP team, and I don't want them to have to look for something, or they're not sure about something. All of the data is right here in front of us. And again, that's how organized I am. That's how I work. I had to go back into his history and document all the behaviors, The student received a one-to-one because of his behaviors, but then his behaviors were worse when he actually got the one-to-one. I had to document all of that. And luckily, I want to say previous, my current administrators, APs, they were there at the school with him when he was younger, when he was in elementary. They were, excuse me, when he was in like fifth grade, they were at the school, so they were able to give insight to his behaviors then, what they had tried then. So all of that's documented in the all of that's documented in our outline. It's shared with all of the IEP team members. So we had to schedule an MDR meeting. The psychologist was there, his counselor was there, I was there, the AP, one of his teachers was there. The two APs that were current APs, but then also they were at the school when he was in like younger grades. They were there. And of course, the district rep, we had our school psychologist, the psychologist was there, and we started the meeting. And and again, his mother was present, and we were going through just everything, all the behaviors, everything. And what set the MDR off was he got into another fight, and it was with a female student, not physically fighting her, but he was very extremely aggressive with her. And that's what set off the MDR. That's what put him over, getting ready to put him over the 10. So we had to have an MDR, and we had to, literally go through what his programming was. Is this working? Like, this is one student who literally had a one-to-one, it wasn't working. Even changing his schedule, even chunking his time, when he would work, when he would get a break, when he would work, when he would get a break. He had his counselor. All of the teachers were aware of his positive behavior support plan. He had an FBA. We had everything in place, and we were definitely doing our due diligence. And there was some, I will say, lack of discipline at home with the student. And as the psychologist was reviewing the information, she was just, going through everything with the mom. Well, what about this? Have you tried this? Have you gotten access to this? To seeing how we can support the mom, the mom at home. And I want to say that was the most stressful. And it was a long meeting, but it was extremely stressful, and it was frustrating because, one, being a Sped supervisor, my goal is to always make sure that the student is in the right placement and they're getting the support that they need. And it was clear to me that perhaps our school was not the best placement for him, and he needed a more, what's the word I want to use? He needed a placement where he could get more counseling. He definitely needed a placement where he could get more counseling, more group therapy as well. He needed a mix of group and individual. And he got group and individual at the school, but he needed a more therapeutic environment, I would say, because it was things going on at school, but there were also things going on at home, and he needed more therapeutic support, and like even some support at home. So to make a long story short, at the end of the meeting, it was decided that this that his behavior was a manifestation of his disability. You know what I mean? It wasn't a situation where it's like, oh, this isn't a manifestation of his disability. It was a manifestation of his disability based off of the data that we had. So we could not suspend him. He could not be suspended. But then at the same time, at the school, we have to protect our students. We have to protect the other students because he's being aggressive. So, on the call, we're like, well, what can we do? Because he cannot just hit students. He can't just put his hands on students because students are going to fight back. He can't just do it and think that that's okay. He still has work that he needs to do. So from the school side, because it was deemed that it was a manifestation of his disability, he could not be suspended. even with all the data that we had and data from previous years, he could not be suspended. They wanted to try the one-to-one again, even though even though it had already been tried and ruled out, because it was bringing, in his eyes, it was bringing more attention to him. He didn't want that attention. We had to add more counseling to his schedule. So we had to amend, the IEP had to be amended. Mom gave permission for that. But then also we were giving resources to mom for outside therapy for him, because clearly there are some things going on at home that he needs support in. And then also um his other, his father, he has a father. And then it's like, then we're getting into the, okay, is he spending time with his father? You know what I mean? Because he's a young boy now, and perhaps he could be acting out because he wants to be, with his father. And this was like information we were learning, during the meeting. So I want to say, as a result of that, like, there was a lot of changes we had to make and accommodations we had to make for this student. And then also, like, even when he took state assessments or benchmarks, we did not do small group. We did one-to-one, because we didn't want to risk interrupting and disturbing the testing environment because he's in a mood or something's going on. So we had to make changes like that. And unfortunately, mom did not follow through with the support he needed at home. There was some, I will say, there wasn't, I'll say, good communication between mom and dad, because dad was not fully aware of the behaviors that his son was exhibiting. And I had to call the dad. I had to call the dad and have a conversation, just to learn more about him, and then how he interacts with his son, and then also share some information. And mom didn't want me to, but I had to also explain to mom that dad has parental rights. The same thing I share with you is information I can share with the father, because he has parental rights. He has not severed his parental rights. There's nothing, and there's no paperwork or documentation stating that we should not communicate with his father. So it was a lot that came from that MDR. And it's not, it's not a fun experience. It really isn't. So, like, having supports in place for students is essential, and making sure it's streamlined throughout your school, making sure people follow proper protocol, and then also your classroom management, also making sure your Sped teachers have their training on proper progress monitoring. Had we not had all our data, in line, even though it still was deemed it was a manifestation of his disability, we still needed to make sure, it was very important that we had our data was on point. And it's very important that training is provided for teachers and school staff, because situations arise. Like, even if it's a non-Sped issue, your data needs to be on point always. So it was a definite learning experience, because I had never been in an MDR prior to that. I've never had students that, even my students who had emotional disabilities, I want to say our school just had a lot of things in place to support students that had behavior. So that could be a reason why a lot of my students did not get, a suspension or anything like that. But, this was a charter school. So there were, and I'm not going to get into charter schools right now, but, depending on who is in the charter school plays a part in, definitely, the leadership you have and how things are being ran. It definitely plays a part. So that was just an example of a MDR. Everyone's experience may not be the same as mine, but this was just more of just, to give you an idea of what that process is like. Again, it is not fun. It is very frustrating. It is very stressful, because it's like you're trying to support a student the best way that you can, and your school may not have enough support. They may need to go to another school that has a support, and then you can run into issues where it's like, no, you got to do this at your school, and it's like, but we don't have it. Like how and how do we get it? Like where can we get it? And it's like it's so much that goes into it. So definitely making sure that if your child has needs, please do your due diligence and research to make sure the school that they're going to can properly support your child and properly accommodate them. Okay. Um, as always, if you guys have questions, you can definitely email us, message us on our social media. We are very responsive. Again, you can book a strategic call with us. We are doing that. We're still doing that for the month of March. We have our Ramadan presentation. If you need support with supporting your Muslim staff, colleagues, or even your Muslim students, we have that presentation available. You can book a call. I'm going to put everything in the comments for you, the links in the comments for you to book the calls. And also, if you have any topics you want us to cover during the coaching corner, definitely share it with us, and we will schedule, when we will talk about those particular topics. Okay. As always, guys, be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, and be safe. We will see you next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.